Does the world really need consultants? If you're a consultant, your answer is probably going to be yes. You'd probably also agree if you're a retailer of high-end Tumi luggage, if you sell funky, colourful dress socks, or you work at a frequent flyer program. But for a large part of the rest of the population, the answer is slowly but surely starting to land on a firm maybe. Over the last decade, we've seen a massive transformation in the consulting industry. Gone are the days when the MBBs had a stranglehold on every government and corporate tender in town. Nowadays, we're likely to see creative agencies pitching for consulting work, Big Four consultants launching agency offerings, companies building in-house teams, and freelancers and independents gobbling up all of the work in between. So in this video, I'm going to answer the question, do we really need consultants, or would the world be better off without them? Let's go. I'm Amir Iqbal from 5 Ways to Innovate. On this channel, I share insights and stories from my 20+ years leading innovation at some of the world's top companies, including Facebook and Deloitte Digital. Full disclosure, I'm an ex-Big Four consultant, and I also built out Meta's partnerships org that works with consulting firms. On top of that, I spent my early career building a consulting team within an award-winning digital agency. I've seen how it works from many different sides of the fence, which has given me a pretty unique viewpoint on how the sausage is made. So I was intrigued when I read an article in the Sydney Morning Herald entitled, "Love Me Tender, Why the Government Can't Leave the Big Four." The author makes a strong case for why the requirements for government tenders unfairly advantage the Big Four consulting firms to win. And that's actually not in the best interest of clients when smaller firms are much more specialised, nimble, and economical. In particular, the recent PwC scandal in Australia has highlighted the precarious nature of this arrangement. In a nutshell, a team at PwC were caught red-handed, advising the tax office on how to maximize their tax collections from foreign tech companies like Google, while they were secretly feeding details of the new measures to those very same tech companies. Not exactly the highest standard of ethics, and it's landed the firm in some very hot water that they may not bounce back from. All the corporate governance policies and CEO apologies in the world can't undo this wrongdoing, and it illustrates one of the biggest problems with the consulting industry. When the entire advisory market is limited to just a handful of large firms, does it still serve the greater good as it once did, or is it a system that now only serves the consulting firms themselves? The question of the value that consultants add came to a head for me recently when I was advising a client. Their team had been charged with leading a major transformation initiative across the organization, and they'd spent close to 3 months planning the project out in great detail. When it finally came to securing budget approvals, there was pushback from the global leadership team, saying that they needed to engage an external consulting firm to run the project. Now, obviously, my client was irritated by this. Not only did it mean going back and throwing out a lot of the planning that they'd worked so hard on, but they strongly felt that the work would be better done in-house. The transformation program involved a lot of intrinsic knowledge of internal processes and systems. So getting an external team of consultants up to speed would mean additional time and additional cost. After going back and forth a few times, things finally blew up when my client asserted that they didn't want to pay $1 million for yet another PowerPoint deck. My advice was not to treat this as a black and white decision. It felt like there was the possibility of a good middle ground here with a cross-functional team. The plan was to bring in specialists from the consulting firm to do what they do best, and then use the internal teams to navigate the things that they are best placed to deal with. In the end, that's the model they ended up going with, and the co-resource team gelled in no time, coming together as a more productive unit than either party could have managed alone. So, is the moral of the story that the world really does need consultants? After all, it worked out for my client. But this scenario doesn't take into account the massive changes that have been sweeping through the professional services industry over the last decade. With the explosion of digital, agile ways of working, the rise of startups, and the gig economy, all of a sudden throwing a bunch of MBAs at every problem didn't work. Suddenly, the world needed service designers, UX architects, and software engineers. These consulting firms responded with an explosion of new offerings. Accenture Song, Deloitte Digital, BCG-X, McKinsey Lick. All of them promise to
imagine, deliver, and run the future.
Forget the good old days of the $1 million PowerPoint deck. Now consultants were expected to actually build things. Now, of course, those clients who still value that rubber stamp of a top-tier consulting brand have continued to work with these large firms for now, albeit with the recently acquired new teams in jeans and sneakers. But we've also seen a spate of more adventurous corporates exploring different models. Freelancing sites like Upwork and Outsized give more sophisticated clients access to individuals with deep specialist skills in an arrangement that's much more flexible and cost-effective. More recently, we've seen offerings that make this concept even more accessible to even the most risk-averse traditional organizations. Studio Space is an on-demand platform launched by a group of ex-Deloitte partners offering access to over 250 of the world's specialist agencies. And the platform itself offers a layer of governance that makes it easy for the client to manage a variety of different vendors under a single contract. This level of access to specialist skills was something that just wasn't possible until now. So, will the traditional consulting firms be able to keep up with these rapidly evolving new models? At least for now, they're trying and they seem to be doing a decent job. But the truth is, these large-scale industry changes tend to be generational. They happen very gradually and slowly, until a new generation of C-suite takes the reins and suddenly everything seems to change overnight. This is the challenge for the consultants, and only time will tell if they will manage to reinvent themselves fast enough to stay in the game. What do you think? Do consulting firms still have a valid role to play in the corporate world? I'd love to hear any other insights or stories you have to share, especially all of you consultants out there. Also, if you have a question you'd like answered by an innovation coach, leave it in the comments below. It might be answered in a future video. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us out. I'm Amr Iqbal. Stay tuned and I'll see you soon.